years. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Rhinos Rants. The off-season continues on for the Vikings anyway, unless you consider the Pro Bowl games, which were held yesterday, to be football, which, seen better defense in a sandlot backyard game with a bunch of 12-year-olds, but that's just the way things have gone to the Pro Bowl, so that's all we're going to say about that. Good evening, Dan. Good evening, Ant. Good evening, everybody in the chat. But since we kind of talked quarterbacks last week and going to be a hot topic of conversation up until the draft and potentially beyond that, I thought we'd move on to another highly critical position for the Vikings that they need to have a plan in place for, and that is edge rusher. Because as it sits right now, DJ Wonnum, Danielle Hunter, and Marcus Davenport are all pending free agents going into the 2024 season, leaving only Patrick Jones II and Andre Carter as the only edge rushers on the roster currently. So obviously rolling into the start of the 2024 season with Pat Jones and Andre Carter as your only edge rushers is probably not an ideal situation. So they are going to have to come up with some sort of plan there, as I mentioned. Again, no slight to Pat Jones and Andre Carter, but the experience level really is not there for me to consider myself confident if we need to do that. Damien, good evening from Argentina. Good evening from the not really frozen tundra of the Great White North, North Dakota, Minnesota, US of A also. Thank you for joining all the way from the Southern Hemisphere. But I figured we would kind of take a look at some of the at least bigger name free agent possibilities that are out there that could be brought in, of course, during the once free agency rolls around here in the middle of March. And then after that, we'll take a look at some of the top names that will be available in the draft, depending upon where the Vikings decide to pick one. And there's good evening, Dave. Dan, I love Hunter, but will he still be worth his contract in 3 years? That is a very good question. And let's start out with the aforementioned Danielle Hunter. Of course, talk from both sides have said, Danielle Hunter has said he wants to stay a Viking. The Vikings have said they would like to have him back. Of course, then Danielle Hunter also made a comment at the Pro Bowl this weekend that whatever the best deal is going to be is what he will, what he's going to do for 2024. Now, he didn't specify is best deal most money, is it best situation, is it combination of the two. He just, put it as it was. I think putting a statement out there for the Vikings that, hey, I'm not going to give you one of those extremely team-friendly deals like he has done in the past. And I can't say that I blame him because, he's 29 years old now, and this is probably going to be his last chance at a big dollar deal. In fact, looking at the numbers over on Spotrac, they gave him, he's at one of the ones they listed with a market value. They are giving him a market value contract of 3 years, $60.1 million. So $20 million average annual value. If it's me and I can get Danielle Hunter for $20 million a year, I'm signing him up. I mean, we paid him 17 this year, and he had 16 and a half sacks. That I would guess that 20 a year isn't going to be a fully guaranteed thing. But, I had kind of assumed Hunter probably was going to be pushing more towards that 25 million-ish range. And he very well may get to that point. It all depends on, what the market shows once free agency opens up. But, 20 mil a year for Danielle Hunter. If I can re-sign him, I'm bringing him back. Whether we get outbid or not remains to be seen. But trust in Rob Brzezinski to make the cap situation work. There again, if we do not bring back certain other players on this team, there may be, there will be more cap space to play with as it is too. I'm getting to all those guys. And be patient. We will get with you shortly. Otherwise, let's look at some of the other free agents we have out there right now. First guy, Leonard Williams, who is right now plays defensive end in the 4-3 in Seattle. He is 29 and a half years old. Spotrac gives him a market value of 3 years, $50.2 million, being at an average annual value of $16.7 million. So likely would be a little bit cheaper than Danielle Hunter. Can he play stand-up linebacker? I don't know. I guess I don't follow his game close enough to know if he can make that transition or not. Not everybody can. But he is probably the next biggest, one of the bigger guys out there, I guess, name-wise. The next guy, Carl Lawson, 28 and a half years old, currently with the New York Jets. Now, if any of these names spark any interest in anybody as we come across, then, we can talk about those. Dave, I did not get a chance to look up his numbers off top of that. My work has been an absolute zoo the last 2 weeks, so I haven't been able to put in the in-depth the research that I would have liked to. But if anybody else has them handy, kick them out and we'll talk them over. Carl Lawson, again, 28 years old. They did not give him an average annual value, but a name anyway. Here's a guy that I really don't want anything to do with, Randy Gregory, currently 31 years old, played with San Francisco this year. And, he's had several off-the-field red flags and whatnot over the years. Would just as soon stay away from him. Here is a guy that I wouldn't sign if he signed for the vet minimum at this point in time. Marcus Davenport. Of course, we brought him in last year on a 1-year, $13 million deal. And I thought I saw something today that in that short time that he played, he got close to $2.9 million a tackle or something like that. It was some absurd number for as little as he played. But on the Davenport front, there was a lot of talk late in the season, especially right about the time that DJ Wonnum went down with injury, that Davenport could have come back to play. And in fact, the team expected him to come back and play, but basically it came down to he chose not to. So that attitude right there, I don't want this guy on my team. I want him gone. Do not even wish him well. Do not give him the $3,000, as our buddy Drew Bunting says. Just don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. I'm done with it. That's exactly the problem there, Dave. You got to have that desire. You got to have that want factor, and he doesn't have either one of them. Uh, you know, got a cool 13 million for doing pretty much nothing all year. So I wouldn't give him another red cent. Another guy out there, Jerome Baker, outside linebacker from the Miami Dolphins. Probably a little more on the reasonable side. We'd have to sign only if he asked for minimum. Played fine for the 10 minutes he was healthy. Never know the truth about one. He played into the season. I'm still done with him, Jared. He's had that injury history in the past. It just, I don't like the situation. Basically, he should be arrested for larceny against the Minnesota Vikings for this year. So now I'm done with him. I don't want him. Good evening, Doc. After that, here's a name that a lot of Vikings fans probably are aware of. Romeo Okwara, 28 years old, from the Detroit Lions. Davin Don't is more like a good evening, Sarah. I mean, Marcus spent more time sitting on his Davenport than he actually did playing football this year. So, yeah, I'm done with him. Okwara, good player. Again, a little bit more in that 4-3 style than 3-4, but we need 3-4 defensive ends as well. So some of these guys might fit some of that bill as well. Our old buddy Zadarius Smith, once again free agent, 31 years old, played this year with Cleveland. That trade was listed on, I believe it was ESPN. Saw it the other day that Cleveland trading for Zadarius Smith was listed as one of the worst trades of the year. So I don't think there's a whole lot of want for Zadarius Smith to come back either, but he's a name that's out there. Played more than Rodgers did, so that's nice. That is very true, Jer. Next guy on the list is another old friend. Played for a grand total of 6 games before Rick Spielman traded him away for considerably less than he traded to get him in training camp the same year. Yannick Ngakoue played with the Bears most recently. He'll be 29 years old, I believe, by the time the season starts. People said we lost that Smith trade. Vikings fans a lot. I mean, we're a fickle bunch. There is, unless the guy we end up with turns into, an all-world player, they're going to say we lost the trade. But yeah, we got something for Zadarius Smith. We were going to cut him loose. We got a draft pick for him. Better than nothing. Okay, Ant, back to Leonard Williams. Had 37 total solo tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 16 hits and 5.5 sacks, and 2 pass defenses. Definitely not better than Hunter, but decent numbers. Yeah. Is he a guy that's going to come in and be your number one edge rusher? No. But could he provide that number 2 guy coming off the other side if a Danielle Hunter is re-signed? Potentially. I mean, he could be something in that, what they expected Marcus Davenport to be this past year. So that's something to keep in mind. I didn't hear anything all about Smith all year. Did he even play? He did, but he was on the field, we'll put it that way, Sarah. Taking up a positional spot out on the field during games. I don't know what his final numbers were, but they weren't anything spectacular. Stephen, good evening. Need to get younger. I agree with that, Ant. But anyway, after Ngakoue, here's an interesting name. And I want to know what you guys think about this one. Chase Young, formerly, of course, of the Washington Commanders, finished out the season for the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, we'll be playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday. 25 years old, or will be shortly. Spotrac has a market value for him of a 1-year, $13 million contract. Sarah says, hell no, he's lazy. That's kind of my thought on the guy, too. I watched that. I don't know if it was the Packers game or it was the Detroit game, but there was a play where Young had the opportunity to make a play and probably stop a play for a loss, and he just kind of half-assed it, and the play ended up going for big yardage. I don't know that I would now. Maybe a guy like Flores could whip Chase Young into shape. I don't know, but there again, like Dave mentioned earlier, there's that want and desire, and I don't know that Chase Young has that. Younger and cheaper if he's healthy, but there again, younger and cheaper doesn't necessarily mean sufficient. And with questions like Sarah brought up a minute ago, the motivation factor. Here, if you can't find the motivation play for the 49ers, you're not going to have the motivation here. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. It's an intriguing name, without a doubt. And if they think that they could get something out of him, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It would have to be a 1-year deal, prove it deal kind of thing. If you could get him for that 12, 13 million, wouldn't completely be opposed to it. You make it incentive laden so that he has to reach certain escalators and whatnot in order to get his 13 million. But Jer Ant says Davenport 2.0, so therefore Chase Young will be an all-pro next season, mark it down. For those of you not aware, we like to give Anthony a ton of crap because sometimes his football takes come from way out in left field. Love you, Ant, but it's true. Cancer in the locker room, pass. Yeah, I can't argue with it, Sarah, because, we don't know if it can be changed around. But like you said, the culture in San Francisco is good enough to where if he's not motivated there, odds are he's not going to be motivated anywhere. So, like I said, it's an intriguing name. In a pinch, I would probably do it, but he's not going to be first on my list, anything. Team needs guarantees, not maybes. Fair point. No such thing as a guarantee in the NFL. That's also true. Here's a couple of guys, though, that I think you got that might perk up people's ears a little bit more than that. Guarantee I'll always hate the cheesers. That is absolutely 100% true. First guy, Josh Allen, edge rusher currently of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 26 and a half years old. Now, Spotrac has him at a market value of a 5-year, $119.9 million contract, which puts him at $23.9 million average annual value. Now, Josh Allen would be a guy I would be very interested in. He's going to be more expensive than Danielle Hunter because he's younger, but his production is right there with Hunter's. So, he's going to bring big money, and if we can't make a deal with Danielle, I would have his agent on the line talking numbers as well. Allen's amazing, but Jacksonville loves him too much to let him go. It all depends on the money. Is he willing to stay there? Does he want to test the waters? I'm not sure what Jacksonville's cap situation is. I think they're okay in the cap, but again, it's a name. Some of these guys may re-sign before free agency starts. Some of them may want to test the waters. It's all names to keep an eye on. This next guy then, Brian Burns, edge rusher out of Carolina. Another guy that I'm a big fan of. They have him in a market value of 5 years, $108.7 million, which brings you in at roughly $21.7 million average annual value. Burns is a guy I would definitely keep the radar up on. Like I said, out of this list so far, I've listed a Good Evening Skull Mafia. The ones I've listed, the three guys right now that on top of my list are Danielle Hunter, Josh Allen, and Brian Burns. And they're all probably going to command at least $20 million a season, probably higher than that. Here's another couple. There's two more names left on the list I have here. They're a little on the older side, but as a situational type rusher, they may be worth bringing in rotation guys. First one is Bud Dupree. Now he's 31 years old. Played for Atlanta most recently. Of course, played for several years in Pittsburgh as well. Again, a little on the older side, but might be able to squeeze a little bit of juice left out of that one. And then the final one. Jaguars only have a little over $11 million in cap. Thank you for checking on that. And of course, we all know that there's a lot of teams right now that are over the cap, and they need to become cap compliant by March 13th, I believe it is. So there's ways to make things work if they're going to keep him. But if they're tied up against the cap, Allen may be out of their price range. So it's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. But this last guy, Jadeveon Clowney, again, just about 31 years old, played for Baltimore this year. I've never been a huge Jadeveon Clowney fan, to be honest with you. He kind of falls back into that same trap that Sarah and Dave were talking about earlier. You have to have the desire, you have to have the want, and sometimes I have questioned on multiple occasions whether or not Clowney has that. Chase Young fit, he's an older Chase Young, kind of in my opinion. So, again, if you want a guy that's going to be a rotational, just come in situational pass rusher, then, a 1-year deal on it. Kwesi likes 1-year deals on some of this stuff, but he's not usually too big on bringing in these over 30 guys either, or at least has not been the first couple of years. Not to say that he wouldn't, but Clowney's not going to be an every down starter for you. Guy came into the league with a lot of hype, nothing much happened. Josh, exactly, that was kind of my point, back to the want and the desire. Clowney was another one of those guys I think maybe believed his own hype a little bit, and thought he could come in just based on his collegiate accolades and be successful in the NFL. No, he's carved out a nice career for himself. Like I said, he's 31 years old, so he's been playing in the league for 10 years. So made a career out of it anyway. Could he have been a lot better in the league? Absolutely, he could have. But Clowney equals Davenport 2.0.2. Yeah, at least Clowney's been relatively healthy. Got any Raven? He Metabuike. Yeah, I like him, and he's not an edge rusher though. That's going to be available. So we'll worry about other positions and stuff later. But anyway, that's it for the free agency big names. And there's a ton of, also, DJ Wonnum, of course, is another one I didn't mention, can probably be brought back at Wonnum's going to get paid a little bit this year, but you probably get him around $8-10 million. I'd consider it. Good evening, Disgusting Act. Yes, that is what we were doing. We're talking about potential replacements if we cannot re-sign DJ Wonnum and Danielle Hunter. or one of the two. So, Wonnum, of course, had a great year last year, 8 sacks, played really well under Flores. But, again, Wonnum is a good number 2 pass rusher and developed into that last year. Prior to the 2023 season, I could have taken or left Wonnum. But, Flores got good production out of him. So, that's worth a look and bringing him back if we can get him. So, but yeah, the Danielle Hunter is, of course, the key. And Uche from New England as well. Yeah, he's another guy. He was on the list. There's a list of about 20 players. I didn't want to get too much into some of these lesser known guys for people just kind of out there wondering who these guys are we're talking about. But now moving on, though, to what we have available at least in the early to mid rounds of the 2024 NFL Draft. There's quite a few edge rushers, and I think it's a fairly deep class the way it's looking. A lot of big name guys, especially up at the top. We've got some of these I kind of went off of NFL Draft Buzz and Pro Football Focus's big board rankings to pick the top 10, 12 guys here. Starting off, Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner. He was the 14th ranked player on Pro Football Focus's big board. He's got a high ceiling. He's really developed himself into a quality player. And a lot of these guys, they're going to come in raw. It's a common thread amongst all these, but you don't find too many guys that are finished products coming in right out of college. Dallas Turner struggles a little bit in consistency, needs to improve on that. But otherwise, he's, one of the he's usually ranked 1 or 2 in most edge rusher rankings. So, he's probably going to be the first or second edge rusher off the board. So, if we do not draft a quarterback early, I would say he would be in play. Next guy. This is a guy that gets Anthony all hot and mushy when he thinks about this. Jared Verse, edge rusher out of Florida State. He is ranked number 15 on the Pro Football Focus big board. BS and Beer, good evening. Thanks for joining. Just talking some edge rushers tonight. Verse, he's a 5th-year senior, very athletic guy. Started out in the FCS and then made the move up to Florida State. He's got all the intangibles you want. He's got the athleticism, he's got the size, he's got the speed, and he's really developed into a good edge rusher. Great in Flores D. I think he'd be a very good fit. So he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. He's a first-round player. So, you'd have to take him probably around that 11 range or trade back a couple spots if you plan on getting him. Here's an interesting name, guy that during the Senior Bowl practice really shined out, but came up lame on Wednesday. And this has been the kid's biggest issue through college as well, is health and reliability and staying on the field. Leatu Latu from UCLA. He's ranked 18 on PFF's board. One of the fastest risers up the charts. He had a hell of a season here in 2023. I've seen a lot of places that say he's the best pure edge rusher in this draft. Don't be surprised if we go edge in the first, even if we bring back Hunter. I think if we don't go quarterback in the first, edge rusher or defensive tackle are going to be the ways we go. Latu's your guy right now. I like the kid's game, but like Anthony just said here, those injury concerns scare me. There's a lot of red flags. If you can't stay, if you have a lot of injury issues in college, they're not probably going to get better in the pros. Now, if he stays healthy, absolutely, he's a hell of a player. Would love him on the team, but that injury history concerns me. And like I said, coming up injured during the Senior Bowl doesn't help his cause any. Next guy on the list, Chris Braswell, the other edge rusher from Alabama. He's number 24 on Pro Football Focus's list. Also made Feldman's Freak list. Of course, if you guys are familiar with that, it's a list of all the athletic freaks in the draft. Feldman puts it out every year. So Braswell made that list. Speed and power, high motor. You're betting on potential with Braswell. He's got a really high ceiling, but again, really raw. Going to need some time to develop there. I hope we get Wilkins in free agency and solve the interior defensive line. I would love Christian Wilkins. He's probably my number one target as far as free agency goes. Now, I don't know that Miami's going to let him get that far. I think they want to try to bring him back, but there's been plenty of discussion that if he does reach free agency, expect the Vikings to be players in the Christian Wilkins sweepstakes. So, he was Brian Flores' first draft pick. So there is, of course, the familiarity there. And I think that probably would be, having Flores here probably is a benefit if it comes down to him choosing a spot. I know they said Arizona was another spot, but with the rankings of the Vikings facilities and the coaching staff and the whole situation here versus what Arizona is, makes the decision a little easier to come here too. But at the very end, money talks too. So, but anyway, after Braswell, then we move on to Braylon Trice, edge rusher out of the University of Washington. Very smart kid, diagnoses the blocks really well. Again, got speed, power, very disruptive up front, good moves. Does need to work on his tackling a little bit. Not quite as aggressive in the wrap-ups and things like that as they need to be at the NFL level. He's a guy that maybe might be a little more suited as a 4-3 defensive end. Was Wilkins there in Miami? Yes, he was. He was Brian Flores' first draft pick in it. So, yes, there is a connection there. The question with Braylon Trice is he better suited as a 4-3 edge or rusher with his hand in the dirt, or can he stand up and rush in the outside linebacker spot? Intriguing prospect nonetheless. Next guy on the list, Jonah Ellis out of Utah. Now his dad, you may recognize the name. It was Luther Ellis, played for the Detroit Lions from 1995 to 2004. We also had his older brother, Christian Ellis, on here as an undrafted free agent with the Vikings in training camp preseason a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when he was here, but Ellis is on the raw side, needs some development. He's doesn't have a whole lot of variety in his pass rush moves, so needs to work on that a little bit. Getting his hands in at the point of attack, it's all stuff that can be developed and stuff, but it takes time. And he's a guy, kind of a mid-round guy that may be looking at, fourth round, somewhere in there. Next guy, this one is kind of bounces up and down and stuff. Chop Robinson from Penn State. He's number 50 on the PFF dig board. High energy, big motor. Another one of he's also on Feldman's freak list. Very explosive, very athletic guy. A lot better against the pass than he is against the run. He could be a guy that could be there earlier in the second round. Should we end up taking a edge rusher there instead of in the first? Then the next guy is his running mate at Penn State, Adisa Isaac. He's number 59 on PFF's list. He's probably more in that day 2, day 3 range that he'll get picked. More of a finesse guy than he is a true power rusher, but very good player nonetheless. Like I said, very deep class here for edge rushers. They're giving me some good guys available in the day 2 selections, even into day 3. Next guy here, Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. He's probably going to be, again, more of a 4-3 defensive end with his hand in the dirt than he would be a stand-up edge rusher in a 3-4. Now, he's 305 pounds. That makes it a little tougher for him if he has to cover backs out of coming out of the backfield, things like that. A guy that can be potentially moved up to the front, playing out of a 5-tech or, defensive end up there. But good player. Very good against the run. Needs to improve a little bit more on the pass rush side of things. But, again, another name to keep an eye on. Here's another guy here that is kind of intriguing to me. Brandon Dorlus, edge rusher out of Oregon. Another one of Feldman's freaks. Very elite athletic skills, good motor, got a good variety of spin moves and pass rushing techniques in his repertoire. Again, haven't really been hearing him up in the first round, but second, third round, maybe a little bit later than that, depending upon. Love Jenkins, hopefully as good as his dad. Next guy here on the list, Gabriel Murphy, running mate to Latu out of UCLA. Again, he's probably better suited as a 4-3 guy. Needs work on his tackling, but he would be one of those guys that would start rotating in, getting a few plays here and there. He's not going to come in and start for you right away. Kind of more of a developmental prospect, which you need those guys too, but probably a mid-round guy, I suppose, maybe a little bit later. A couple more here. Mason Smith out of LSU. Now, this guy is probably going to be a front line guy in a 4-3 or, that defensive end 5-tech type guy. He is a big dude. He's 315 pounds. His biggest issues when they come down to it is a lot of times he's getting too high up in the pad level, which of course ruins his leverage, poor balance, all the stuff that can be corrected. Just teaching technique is a big thing. He's good tackler, but sometimes can get a little aggressive and over pursue, taking himself out of the play. Good finisher, though, when he does get there. Again, on the Feldman freak list, has the size and strength that you want in a front 7 guy. But again, is he an edge rusher? Probably not. He's a defensive lineman, but names nonetheless. Anyway, so that's those are the main guys. Now, the NFL Draft Buzz, which is where I got my write-ups here for these guys, has them ranked as follows. A little bit different than Pro Football Focus does, but they have Latu as number 1, then Dallas Turner as their second ranked, Jared Verse, Chop Robinson, Braylon Trice, excuse me, Jonah Ellis, Chris Jenkins, Brandon Dorlus. They have Braswell all the way down at 11 in their list. And then Adisa Isaac is their 12th ranked guy. So Of course, we can't take everybody up early, so there's good potential that there's going to be some defensive depth players and potential long-term starters taken in that. When we have 2 4th-round picks, I think we have 2 5th-round picks, or 5th and 2 6th, something like that. Don't have a 7th, but so there's some of these guys that are in that day 2, day 3 are probably going to get, targeted for us, and potential. They're high. Braswell goes late round 1. I've seen him go as high as round 1. I've seen him in round 2. I've seen him as far down as round 3 in some mocks. Again, mock drafts this time of year, not exactly the most scientific approach on anything, because you don't know what teams are doing with free agency and all that stuff. Things are going to change considerably between now and the draft. So, the mocks don't really start carrying weight, I guess you could say, until after at least the first wave of free agency. Combine tells a real story. That it doesn't even tell the whole story, but it's going to help give some clarity to some of these between the combines and pro days. That's where these guys are going to set themselves up for where they're going to get drafted. Of course, you have their body of work, their tape that they put on for the last 2, 3, 4 years. There's going to be guys at the combine that are going to shoot up the boards just because they test out well, But you have to take guys running around in bicycle shorts and tank tops, the stuff that they can do there with a grain of salt versus when you put the pads on and when they're actually going against live opposition. So there's so many different things you have to take into account. But as it is, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of options should Danielle Hunter and or DJ Wonnum not return. I'm hoping that we get at least Hunter back. We'll find out in a little over a month. Today is the 5th. Free agency starts March 13th, so basically 5 weeks. And a lot of stuff's going to happen between now and then, so that's going to be, a thing to want them both back. If we can, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that Wonnum might get a little more money someplace else than what we're going to be willing to pay him, but maybe not. So ready for the combine, so am I. There's a lot of people that, once the Super Bowl's over, then there's no football until at least August. Honestly, I love this part of the season, or the off-season, just almost as much as I do watching the game itself. I love the strategy, trying to figure out what pieces you can get, how you're going to fill the holes with the free agency, how you're going to build your depth and your young developmental talent through the draft, and figure out how to field the best team that you possibly can. What's going to happen at quarterback? What are we doing at edge rusher? Defensive line. Offensive line needs upgrades, and we've got 3 guys that played significant time last year that are going to be free agents that we need to decide whether we bring them back or we look for somebody else. I have no problem with it's the UFL this year, XFL and USFL merged, which I think is a smart move on their part. You have 2 spring leagues competing against each other. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. These are another good spot for some of these guys that maybe didn't make an NFL roster after final cutdowns last year. Your undrafted free agents, your 6th, 7th, 8th round guys that maybe didn't quite make the cut on the team they were. This is another opportunity for those guys to go out and prove that they belong in the NFL. And if 3, 4 guys a season make it back, then I think that league is done itself. I've always been a proponent that the NFL needs to have a developmental league. For many years back, back in the day where they used to have the NFL Europe, the World League of American Football, the different names that went by. I always thought that was a good thing because you gives these guys the opportunity. You have how many different players coming from 200 and some odd different universities in college football, whether it be FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III. It gives you opportunities to see some of these guys that you may have missed out on. A guy that maybe wasn't quite ready when he got an invite as an undrafted free agent rookie, or a guy that was drafted in the 7th round and maybe couldn't beat out the guys that were in front of him. It's an opportunity, and that's a lot of what these guys ask for. Sometimes you can find these guys in the, Ivan Pace Jr. this year was a prime example. Somebody that you find as an undrafted free agent who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder and basically go in and, like he made the comment he made on his Instagram after he failed to get drafted, the Vikings picked him up. You all done fucked up. He comes in with a chip on his shoulder, and Ivan Pace Jr. played extremely well this year. I was extremely happy with the production he got out of him, and I expect bigger and better things for him next year. So they have their value. Are they the NFL? No. Are they ever going to be the NFL? No. But they have their place, and it's still football. So if you want to watch a football game in April, you can watch a football game in April. And for places like, look at last year, St. Louis, they lost the Rams. The Battlehawks came in. They went when the first game came out. They expected they had the lower bowl open. That was it. They had to open the upper bowl at whatever they're calling the dome down there in St. Louis now, because that city wanted football so badly that they were willing to pack the stadium for a B-League professional football game. It gives some of these places that don't have an NFL team an opportunity to go watch professional football. So I'll get off my soapbox about the UFL and that kind of stuff now. But been going on about close to 50 minutes here. That's about all I've got for this week. If anybody else has anything you want to hit really quick, we can do that. Otherwise, we will call it a night here. Again, programming notes, Brunswick's Best will be back again this week on Wednesday, looking at number 31, so stay tuned for that. And, of course, our regular studio show, Friday night, 6 p.m., where Brunswick and I will be discussing a multitude of different things. Again, looking at some of the free agency stuff, draft picks. Of course, we'll have our Super Bowl predictions and any other NFL news, rumors, and spicy, juicy takes along the way. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. Want to thank everybody again for hopping in, joining the chat tonight. I love talking life with you guys every Monday. If you haven't done so, hit that like button on the way out. If you haven't subscribed or on YouTube, please do that. Follow us on Facebook, all that good stuff, at Vikes Uncensored on Twitter/X. I'm on there trying to interact as much as I can. So remember, he hate me, must have been the XFL. Yeah, that was the old version of XFL. There was a couple of guys last year, couple of backup quarterbacks and stuff that made it back to the NFL. So there's value, like I said. But with that, guys, want to again thank everybody for watching. Shout out to the Filipino fan club, Noy, Jen, Bibi, Wilma, G, everybody over there that watches. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to watch a guy in North Dakota talk Vikings football. Really appreciate it with everybody. But with that, guys, you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you Wednesday for Brunswick's Best and regular studio show, Vikings Uncensored, 6 p.m. Central Time on Friday. With that, Skull Vikes. Have a good evening, everybody.